It's a pleasure for me to be here and to work with a little tractor which I'm not very familiar with, but I will do my best. This little tractor has a separate C-arm, and what we have done so far is to align the fluoroscopy system with the central axis of the little tractor. And then we have moved the table to a treatment position, and I have made a quick fluoroscopic image just to see that the stone is near the focus. It's thereby evident that this proximal urethral stone obviously has moved up to the kidney, and most certainly is situated in the renal pelvis. Having done this and made certain that there is no skeletal structures hiding the stone, I had some concern when I saw the image that the 12th rib was in that region, but I think that the stone now is well away from the rib. Having reached this stage, I will pour water. The patient is supported on a plastic foil, and there is thus a space between the foil and the body that needs to be bridged by the shock wave, and we need some transmission medium, and that medium is water that should be without any gas. And I have prepared some water from the tap. Usually you could make it even here. And make sure that we have enough of water under the patient, and check carefully that there are no bubbles. Usually you could prepare your water by boiling it, but if you take it from the tap, it is necessary to have it stand for some while to get rid of the air. Then, having done that, we can make more correct positioning of the patient, and I already at this stage now will reduce the aperture to limit the exposure to X-rays for the patient. After some time, you can learn how much or how long you should press the buttons in order to get the stone in focus, and this is the frontal view. And after that, we can switch the C-arm to the 30-degree position here. And so that we can find out where the stone is, and then adjust the table in vertical position to get the stone precisely in focus. Then we can go back again to the frontal view here, and the next and I think important step that I take is to use a belt. I always recommend using a belt to make sure that the patient is in good position to the table, and also to reduce the respiratory movements. After that, we will prepare now the shockwave head, and we will treat the patient with shockwaves from below. And now it is important that we have a transmission medium also from the shockwave source into up to the plastic foil, and for that purpose we apply silicone oil, rich amount of silicone oil, And I think for a aperture like this, about 15 to 20 milliliter will be required in order to avoid any air bubbles in it. And that any air bubbles will reduce the shockwave power, and it is important then to make sure that there are no such bubbles, because we cannot have any control of that. After that, the shockwave head is turned into the treatment position under the patient, which is going on right now. And then the valve is filled up, and we are ready to make the final adjustments here in the horizontal plane. So it is, yeah, okay.
Which little trip are you using, and what is the energy source? Hans, can you hear?
Yeah, yes.
So I don't see a name on the machine, but by the coloring it looks like a Siemens machine.
It's a storage machine.
Oh, okay. And what is the energy source?
It's an electromagnetic source with a coil and metal membrane and a parabolic reflector, which makes the focal volume, as I have been told, about 4 by 50 millimeters. So that's the reason why we now can restrict the positioning to the horizontal plane here, because the height of the focal volume is as large as 50 millimeters. So the stone will be in focus. So we don't have to check it any other. Now this stone is a little bit, as you can see, perhaps, if you see, I don't know if you see the fluoroscopy image, but now we are quite well in position, and then we are ready to start. And since this is a patient with obvious infection stone history, has been given antibiotics before the treatment, it is important to make sure that there is no anticoagulation treatment going on, and that there is no hypertension. I will shoot with a frequency of 1 hertz, 60 per minute, to avoid any damage to the tissues. Dann fangen wir an.
So, Professor Tiselius, I have just 2 questions. What about antiplatelets?
About antibiotics?
No, antiplatelets. You told us that the patient should not be under anticoagulation. Yep. What is your policy regarding antiplatelets?
Yeah, any patient on salicylates, aspirin and so should stop their treatment 10 days before being subjected to shockwave lithotripsy, at least if you are treating stones in the kidney. You can be a little more liberal for stones in the ureter. But in as much as this stone also in its very proximal position from the beginning was very close to the kidney, that rule should be followed.
And what is your upper limit in terms of number of shock waves in kidneys and ureters?
I usually stop the treatment after 3,000 shocks. That's my personal opinion, that if you haven't disintegrated the stone with 3,000 shocks, another 1,000 or 2,000 doesn't change the situation, because the The way stones disintegrate is usually in the surface area, and then it is much better to get rid of the fragments and repeat the treatment in case you have stones that are insufficiently disintegrated. And particularly if you are shooting on kidneys, be careful not to damage the tissue. So I think it's wise to be careful and accept the retreatment rather than over-treating the patient and take the risk of damage.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's very important to know your statement about antiplatelet drugs, as these numbers of patients are increasing terribly, and we have a very high number of patients being even on the double antiplatelet drug therapy, actually.
Absolutely.
We go back to our live surgery or live treatments. Professor Tiselius, we just see that you have finished the procedure. Could you just tell us a little bit about what happened?
After 1,000 shocks, the stone is partially disintegrated, but not completely. And therefore it is necessary to analyze the reason why the stone doesn't break as expected. And the explanation certainly is that the 12th rib now is more clearly visible. Initially, I placed the patient rotated slightly to the left with a pillow on the right side in order to get the stone material away from the spine. But I'm now going to reposition her a little bit by placing her flat and removing the pillow so that the stone material will move hopefully slightly medially in order to get a more free shockwave path. We will continue now with this position.
Modulith.
Okay.
Ja, ich würde es hochschauen.
So, and then we are going to make a final check. So now the stone is good and it will be okay. So we continue now. The alternative, I can mention that, is to give shockwaves from in front, but in this patient and today this is not possible because of the intestinal gas that will cover the stone.